G. Susan Wagner. No, because it's so much whatever your Now we're going to stop this here. Let me just turn it more so you can see. Yeah, well, I can see. There we go. What? Yeah, everybody's there. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our second of 4 installments on Maywood, historically speaking. I'm Alan Bernstein, the Adult Programs Coordinator. I'm here with Betty Fetzer, historian of the town. And tonight we will be covering, supposedly, the period 1935 to 1950, but we've taken some liberties. And we'll be bouncing all over the place, but we really won't go past 1950. Or maybe a little, who knows? Betty knows this better than I do. And then after this month, we will be doing part 3 in September and part 4 in October. If you hold on a second, I want to let some more people in. Okay, that's good. So we are going to start show. Okay. We are going to start the slide demonstration or the slide PowerPoint in a second, but what I'd like to show you first is, okay, you can see, we had a slide that showed something that's been around for a while. Hopefully you can all see this.
Okay.
Right. You can't see the, yeah, there it is, because you can see. Yeah, there I am. So why don't you speak to this, Betty?
Okay, just so you don't have to stand there forever and hold it because it gets heavy. This is a fireman's ceremonial megaphone, and it was presented to my grandfather, Gustav Fetzer, in 1902. And it is monogrammed, engraved, and polished to some degree. But it was a gift in commemoration and thanks for his work in the beginning of the fire department. And what they did in those days, they would have a megaphone that was probably made of some light wood, and they could shout the instructions to the men who were fighting the fires because there was no other ways of doing it, and it got there a little louder and so forth. It's a family treasure. It'll eventually be the town treasure and go from there. So thank you, Alan.
You're welcome. Let me just let a couple people in.
Yeah.
And then we'll go to the presentation. We have okay, so let me share out and we will get started. I'm going to start with this one. Since we showed this already.
Okay. All right. Now, before we really get into that, I just want to take a couple of seconds and thank everybody for coming tonight to be part of this. And special thanks to Caitlin Hull, our librarian, certainly to Alan Bernstein, who's our adult program coordinator, and thanks to the library board and the historical committee, and those of you who tuned in last month and hopefully are with us tonight. And of course, a big welcome to all you newcomers. This is a fun thing for me to do. And like Alan said before, we've been trying to do it in a block of time, but it doesn't always work that way. So we'll see where we go. And there are bound to be overlaps, and I hope not too many omissions. So we'll go from there. So what they say in some places is fasten your seat belts and off we go. The arrowheads, and there are several of them, there are only 5 in this picture, but these were found in Maywood, somewhere along Coles Brook, which would be running between Maywood and Hackensack, but probably up in the area around what we now know as Washington and Fairmont Avenues. And they were found by one of the men when he was going along the river, digging or playing in the water, and that's what we have. So our history goes back way before our official incorporation in 1894.
There we go.
Okay. Now this is a group, last time we went to we were supposed to go to 1929, 28, 29. This is before, a little bit before that. In the mid-20s and going forward, organizations began to flourish, and this is a Girl Scout troop from 1912 in Maywood in the 1920s. Girl Scouts started in 1912. And at one time, to be a Girl Scout leader in Maywood, you had to be a teacher, and it was part of your school contract with the Board of Education that you would be a Girl Scout leader. Things have changed, and the organization is still running smoothly, and things are going well. But the girls are participating in a ceremony at that, and we do not have any identification of the people who were there. So now the boys, not to be outdone, were playing some kind of a game to find shoes. You'll notice that their shoes are off and they're looking around and everything. But notice their instructor or their leader or mentor who has a cigarette hanging out of his mouth. Nobody told him it wasn't good to smoke in those days. Hopefully he learned. So. Now this is a 1916 program. There are 3 pages to this, and this recognizes the U.S. involvement in the Mexican Border War in 1916. And there were men from Maywood who served in this service against that wartime thing. And their names are on a monument up at Veterans Memorial Park, and it was Mark Masters, Emil Peterman, William Lind, and a Charles Ferring. And they were welcomed home, and there was a big program, and they served refreshments, and after that they had dancing. That's what the program said. I don't know. Believe it or not, I wasn't there. And but the men of Maywood have been answering the country's call to service for all wars, police actions, and military events, for lack of a better word, but you know what I mean. Now this presumably are Boy Scouts emulating the military. You can see that there's a bugler, there's a fellow who has a rifle, the tent is up, and somebody's waving a flag, and all those things were very militaristic and in some areas still are. Now, the girls got into some type of a game, and this, I haven't figured this out. I've only seen this one picture. I don't know what they call it, but if you can see closely, you'll see that they have their shoe on the right foot, and the left foot is on a block of wood or some type of a small case, and they're racing in mud. So it's probably better known as a mud race.
Correct. True.
Now, these girls are participating in a patriotic event with flags and the stars and stripes and sashes and everything. And this was all a very integral part of our town's life. And these things still are. We commemorate these things with great honor, and we hope with dignity and thanks. This presumably is the beginning of what we knew up until a couple of years ago as our first aid squad. These women were providing emergency service and care to people who were sick at home while the men were off fighting in World War I. And the ambulance squad in Maywood, the first aid group, was volunteer and lasted up until just a few years ago when we became covered by an ambulance service through hospitalizations and things. This is one of my favorite pictures. The gentleman is Mr. George L. Dillingham Sr., and the dog is Tippy. And I knew both of them. Dillingham's lived right here next to the library. The house is still standing. Mr. Dillingham Sr. was very active in town. He was active in politics. He served on the Board of Education. He was an active member of the Presbyterian Church. By profession, he was a jeweler, and his jewelry business was at 10 Maiden Lane in New York City. His son, George L. Dillingham, and the L stands for Lincoln, was the first commander of our American Legion post after World War I. And his son also was a victim of trench war gases in Europe in World War I. Tippy was a love, a very gentle puppy, and he had a leash that had to go from the Dillingham house down to Toma Avenue and halfway around the block before you could catch up to him and everything. So they've been long-time people. This was just a notice that was in one of the papers for the Parish House Guild at the Presbyterian Church in Maywood. Churches were very noted in their respective communities. Here in Maywood, we had two Lutheran churches, a Presbyterian church, an Episcopal church. Eventually, we had the Temple Beth Israel for the Jewish people in our community. And then eventually after that, Queen of Peace was given the property where they are now, and that was the old Malin estate. Mr. Malin made pianos and sold them in New York City, so he must have done very well. 1937 fire truck, and I don't know, and I haven't found out because I haven't seen anybody to ask if that's the Fox Arons that we have now.
It is.
It is? Okay, good. Very ceremonial, very well kept and polished, and in all sorts of parades and everything. Someday I might be lucky enough to get a ride on that. I have ridden on the old real fire engine, and I have ridden on the hook and ladder fire engine. So I figured I should round out all that with the Fox Arons. But it is a showpiece.
I mean, it's still in working order.
Oh, it's an excellent one.
So hopefully maybe this 4th of July parade, they'll bring it out.
Well, it's out every year.
Okay,
it's
that's
every year.
great.
They have it out every year. Absolutely.
Maybe tell them you want to ride.
They got people already signed up. I don't think I can jump the list. Or I shouldn't try. I've never really seen anything like this. It's called the Maywood Associated Appraisal Group Patch for Property Tax Appraisal. And whether this group went around and was doing the property taxes or trying to sell real estate, I'm never sure. If anybody has any information on any of these things, not just the patch, but if anything else comes up and you know something that you think we should know, I'd love to hear from you.
This is something that I actually found on the internet. It took me a while to find out that the NJAAG was the Associated Appraisal Group. The M stood for Maywood.
Of
So
course.
there must be other towns that have similar
You would
things.
hope, you would hope. It's from the 1940s, so we'll see. Now, this is a sort of a plot of the John D. Burdan house, as you can see. And it's right alongside the railroad track. And the home that is there was on the Historic House Survey that the U.S. Department of Interior and the National Park Service did. And the house is still there. Of course, Burdans are not there. But if you're going down Maywood Avenue and you're right at the track, look across at the house, and you'll see on one side where there's sort of a extra room that bows out from the basic part of the house. That used to be a post office. And when they didn't have mailmen delivering mail, you went to the post office and you went to Mr. Burdan's house and you got your mail through the window at the, and the room was off the dining room. So been there a while. There also on that property, you'll see the remains of a model of the old red mill that was in Paramus and Rochelle Park, and the base of it is still there.
Yes, and this I found, this was from 1939, 1940, they did this survey.
1940 survey, so. Yeah. Now, the Maywood train station is here in this picture. Actually, the train station is over where the engine is more than anything else. And this is a 1941 picture. And we were a commuter town then, we still are. And there's a gatekeeper in the picture, right there. And the little building behind him was the station master's house for a while. And that eventually was moved, and it has another long history of use and everything. The railroad station is still there. The station, through the efforts of Ed Kaminsky and a great group of volunteers, was saved from the wrecking crew's ball a couple of years ago, and the whole thing has been restored to its former glory, and it's a well-noted and greatly received addition in historical buildings. It's been preserved, and they hold different programs there, but as you know, since COVID began, their program systems are all a little fluky, so eventually we might get back to so-called normal, or we'll start a new one, whatever's easiest.
Now, as a commuter town, you were saying, this, yes. How long did this train run?
How long they ran up until, probably about 15 years ago. A freight train or so goes through. I think they have to do it daily to maintain the franchise or the tracking area.
But as a commuter, no more.
No. Now this is a picture I had never seen until just recently, and it was Roy Schmidt and his wife Ella, and their son Alan is there. And they had the candy shop, and basically they started out, they bought the store from Rosenblatt's, which would have been at part of where Maywood Market is on that part of Pleasant Avenue. And then eventually they outgrew that and they went to the far corner where the Pancake House is now. But Roy was, the store had everything. It had wine and liquor, it had magazines and newspaper and candy and ice cream and sodas and stuff like that. Ella was well known in town because of her ability to teach piano lessons, and she taught lots of people in town. She was very active with the Women's Club when it first started, and with the bell, with the Bell Ringers group.
What I liked about this picture was it evokes memories if you're at the right age, because, you know, I've walked into shops like this, whether it be a candy store or whatever, and, you know, you had the pipes here on the wall.
Right.
You had candy, as you said, you had a few stools there for you because you had a soda fountain. And
when Roy moved the store from over to where the Pancake House is now, there was even a counter in the back that acted as a post office because Maywood didn't have one. And we were a substation to Hackensack. And even though we have a building, I think we're still considered a substation to Hackensack. But you could go and get money orders and stamps, nothing big or exotic, but at least you could go there rather than into Hackensack to get anything. And this is an interesting ad because it was in 1943 and it's help wanted, and it's wanted by Maywood Chemical Company. And they were looking for people because of the war effort. The Maywood Chemical Company has a long history all of its own. It was a conglomeration of 3 or 4 companies that were merged by Dr. Schaefer and merged from their individual names into Maywood Chemical Company. And during the war, there were a lot of people employed for the war effort and everything. And then there was another factory that was closer to Maywood Avenue. Maywood Chemical is where Steppen is now. Steppen bought Maywood out years ago. And they're still functioning there on West Hunter Avenue, sorry. And but there was Citro Chemical Company, which was closer to Maywood Avenue, probably at about where the parking lot is for Myron now. And Citro was noted for making bromo seltzer, which came out of Baltimore, but the people that owned it were in Baltimore, and they were there for years. And at one point, there was another small building close to Maywood Avenue that belonged to Pfizer, and they were doing cancer research there. They didn't stay there very long, and they went to Connecticut on that. In 1944, as you can see, Maywood was 50 years old, and the Record newspaper put in a special edition, and they had highlighted some of the things in Maywood at that time. The print on the paper is not that good, so you can't make it out.
You don't see that anymore, no matter what.
No. Now, Colonel Lydecker, all-time favorite person in town, all-time well-known person, obtained the rank of Colonel World War I. He was the Grand Marshal of the Maywood 4th of July Parade up until the time he passed away in 1968, I do believe. And they said at one time his horse was Gray Dawn. Now, Gray Dawn didn't live all those years to be a horse in the Maywood's 4th of July Parade, so I'm sure there were other ones, but they kept pretty much to that gray-white color, and everybody knew the Colonel. And he had the farm. His house is still a home to one of my favorite people, the Padovano family. The whole family's there. And you have to, in all of these areas where you see fields or home events like this horse standing here, sort of close your eyes and think back to what it might have looked like. Lydecker's farm was from what is Howcroft Road now. It was not called that then. And it went to Essex Street, and it went from Maywood Avenue almost to the Hackensack border. And it was only after World War II was over that properties were being sold and garden apartments were being built. And if you walk around Maywood and you look at the name of some of the streets, it might invoke some thought about maybe this is what was growing here, you know, Maple Lane, Walnut Lane, that type of thing. And Garden Street, if you have a garden, it's a residential area, as most areas in town are. But just think of all the gardens that could have been placed if they're in any of these areas, if there weren't homes and stuff. So. Now this is part of Pleasant Avenue. This Maywood Florist sign you can see without any real problem. There are 2 houses next to it. Those 2 houses are still standing. They are not occupied to the best of my knowledge. They have been updated, modernized, and so forth. They're owned by the same family that's owned them, or members of the same family that's owned them, I think, since they were built. And you can just see the partial rooftop in the one building way over to the left. No, that's it down there. That's part of what was Maywood Bakery. I'm not sure what it's going to be now in that complex there. There's always something going on, but nothing ever seems to get completed. So who knows?
No signs there to say where it will be.
No, not at all. Not at all. Now, Miss Maywood is a bomber from World War II. It was supposedly bought by money sent to the government from Maywood, the American Legion, and they raised money with different fundraisers, but the biggest thing was that they had salvage drives for used metals, metal objects, and also for newspapers. And when they sold all that off, that's where the money went to. I didn't bring it tonight because I haven't been into the history room up at 15 Park Avenue, but we do have a model of Miss Maywood, and I'll bring it for the September program. And that's the, whoops, there you go. And that's the crew for the Miss Maywood. Now, if you want to look at bigger pictures on that, they are in the entranceway of American Legion Post 142 on Passaic Street. And to the best of my knowledge, there was not a member of the crew that was from Maywood. But that could be challenged by somebody. If you know, I would love to hear from you.
No interesting piece I found when I was looking this up is that I ran across the Enola Gay.
Oh, yeah.
And why don't you speak just a little bit about it?
The Enola Gay was the name of the plane that dropped the bomb on Hiroshima, the atomic bomb, World War II. And the Enola Gay was co-piloted by a man, Bob Lewis. And Bob Lewis eventually moved to Maywood after World War II, lived on Edgewood Place, and I was a babysitter for the Lewis family for a while. He grew up, as I recall, in Ridgefield Park. And after everybody realized the devastation and so forth and so on, he was one of many who had what is today a post-traumatic syndrome type thing. Now we have an interesting bit of picture here. World War II, the big thing was to raise money to help support the troops and do a lot of different war effort things. And through the efforts of Hal Leroy, this one,
Right there,
and his wife Ruth Dodd, they lived in with the Dodd family up on Maywood Avenue between Taplin and Passaic Street. But because of that, Joe Lewis, whoops.
Let me go back. Hold on 1 second. No, that's my fault for hitting the button.
There we go. That's good. Joe Lewis,
Obviously.
Ed Sullivan, and Ruth Dodd, Bob Hope, Hal Leroy, and I have forgotten the name of the poor soldier that had to be with him, but he's standing there, and they came to Maywood, and this is World War II, and Maywood had a lot of men in softball leagues, but a lot of the men, of course, had been called to service, but they came to play baseball, and they were up at what we know as Veterans Memorial Park now. It was the playground in those days, or the field, and they would play there and raise all sorts of money. We have a group of people, show business people, that have been to Maywood for various and sundry causes over the years. I happened to think of Tiny Tim not too long ago, and I thought I can still see this character riding down the street in the 4th of July parade. And what the purpose was, I truly don't remember, and so forth. But we had, if you go back to the early days of our town history, there were people who were noted in New York in their day for being actors and actresses and coming to town. And there's always been a close connection of sorts of the show business people. One of the ones that you might recall with great newspaper coverage was when after World War II, they were trying to raise money to build a teen canteen. and they were selling raffle tickets, and whoever sold the most raffle tickets, and I don't know what the prize was for the raffle, but the kid that sold the most tickets ended up with a date with Carlton Heston, and he came to town, and that was a big splash on publicity and everything. And I believe it was Carol Stannard who won the date. So for those of you who have been around a bit, Hortense Mock is one of our leading town citizens. Her name was Hortense Hunkley. Hunkley's owned the bar over where the new Amici Grill is now, the bar and grill in there. It was a family business, and they supported all sorts of local efforts and things. Hortense was a nurse in the Army. She's a veteran of World War II, Battle of the Bulge, and served her country and her town very well. One day I got a telephone call from some group that wanted to honor Hortense, and I gave them whatever information I had at that time. And then for some reason, I decided I should go up to Veterans Memorial Park and take a look at the monument and find her name. Well, I looked and I looked and I walked around and I read every name and I looked at all the plaques, and I could not find Hortense Mock. I could not find Hortense Hunkley. And I was really upset. So I came home and I called her and I said, how could they have missed putting your name on this very important monument? And she said, oh, the answer to that is very simple. I wasn't living in Maywood when I joined the service. I lived in Rochelle Park. So I hopped over to Rochelle Park, and sure enough, her name is there. But she's considered to be a Maywoodian and was a favorite among many people.
She had a healthy life. She lived to be 97 years old.
Yeah, she was 97 and died in not quite 3 years ago. The plaque here is a World War II monument at the Veterans Park up on Grant Avenue. And this lists the men who were killed in service. Arthur Cumming, Garrett Demarest, William Eccleston, David Goudet, John Stacy Hamill, Thomas Killia, Alfred Zanzari, John Stavola, Alfred Taxis, and Norman Zuber. Now, of all those people with the exception of David Goudet, Thomas Killia, and Alfred Taxis, have streets in Maywood named for them. And any person who was killed in service has a star after their name on the street. So when you're walking around, look at some of these street signs. If you see a star, that person has been killed in war, fighting for us. And now why the other three never got a street, I don't know. I had a call not too long ago. Maybe they were going to open up some property in town and need new names for streets and so forth and so on. And I suggested Hortense Mock, but I never heard anything from anybody, and the property is still vacant. So we'll see what happens. This is just a cover sheet of the program for Independence Day celebration in 1946, 4th of July. 4th of July is a big thing in this town, always has been. The only time we didn't have a parade was last year because of COVID. We're having a parade this year. It will be modified because of the COVID situation. And when the plans were being made, we, the committee of the 4th of July parade, had to make decisions that maybe we would have done something different had we waited a while, but nobody knew where or how this was going to turn out and what the reaction to people will be. The parade will be modified. There will not be a grand marshal per se. We're honoring all the important people who came to work all the different hours and shifts that they did in various occupations and professions. And there will be a service honoring Independence Day at Veterans Park after the parade, and it will include the reading of the Declaration of Independence, which is something we did last year when we couldn't have the parade, and it was a big success, and the committee was complimented quite liberally by a lot of people of how nice it was. What happens next year, we just have to wait and see, folks. Just have to wait and see.
And this year, it'll be on Monday, July 5th,
Yes, that's
right?
the other thing, July 5th. We got a 3-day weekend this year out of 4th of July because it's on, the 4th is a Sunday, and the parade will be on Monday, the 5th. If you'd like to put a car or an entry into it, get in touch with the 4th of July committee. You can do that. And we'll start down at Myron's parking lot and follow the, as far as I know, follow the same route. There will not be as many bands. There may or may not be a program, but you can be there to cheer people on and to honor the holiday. There's Carlton Heston at the end of the business, and he's with the Stannard family. So I think that's the last one.
Yes, he actually had to go and, you don't think him crossing the Red Sea or fighting Masala, but here's blowing up balloons.
Blowing the balloons and stuff like that. So,
So, if you will, let me just get out of this. It's a little shorter program tonight, but if you unmute yourself, you have some questions for Betty.
let's see what we can do with them.
Yeah, just make sure you unmute yourself.
Mary Bozier, Ellen Sue, up in Maine.
Yep.
Okay. I called Patty,
Yeah.
and she said she was going to tune in. I don't know if she's out. Patty, are you out there? Patty Gemp?
I don't know. I talked to her also.
Yeah. She didn't listen to us.
Never does.
Any questions or comments or things that you saw that brought up any kind of memories or things you'd like to say?
Hi, Betty. Pat Reynolds here. Just again, thank you for a great program.
Oh,
Thank
Pat.
you, Carol, and the rest of the committee for the great job you guys do keeping our history alive.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Pat.
And another comment, if I may, quickly.
Sure.
The railroad stopped their passenger service in 1966.
66. Okay, thank
Right.
you.
Sure.
Yeah,
Great job. We're from Maine too.
thank you. Thank you. Now, what I'm going to, go ahead.
Betty, it's Tony. Just wanted to say thanks for a good job. I learned a lot of stuff that I didn't know before.
Oh, there's always something rattling around. Any noise you hear is what's rattling in my head. So, but what I'd like to, I have a challenge for all of you people. And what you should do, in my mind, and this isn't going to cost you anything but time. There's no money involved or anything like that. Walk around town. Look at different areas, look at different streets, think about them, think about the people that have made this town. And if you don't live here any longer, you can do the same wherever you've dropped anchor, because you want to be part of the community. And history, in my mind, is people. It's not the dates. We know Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492, but so what? What happened after that? You don't hear too much, but it's what we do and how we react and how we treat circumstances and each other and so forth and so on. And there is one woman here in Maywood, and she came to me not too long ago and she said, I need a map of Maywood. And I said, whatever for? And she said, well, I'm a walker. I said, oh, I said, yeah, well, I've decided I'm going to walk on every street in Maywood and I'm going to check them off on the map as I do it. And I thought, this is something we could all do. Look where the parks are. Do you know how many parks we have in Maywood? Would you hazard a guess how many parks we have in Maywood?
Mailings?
How many?
It's true after all those years.
Counting.
Oh, you're counting, okay. Well, with a stretch, I came up with 8. Did you think we had that many? I didn't. But find them, go find them. They're out there. They're marked in some way or form. And you'd be surprised at the different types of architecture, the different types of locations of how the neighborhoods have been set up. We have two areas that have no sidewalks. They were built that way. They have streets that loop around. Fairway Knolls is one and Cedar is the other. One at one end of town and one down towards the middle. We have streets that are named Fairway and Gulf Avenue because of the connection that the Hackensack Golf Club owned the property. They bought it from Maywood. They sold it back. They gave it back to us and stuff like that. There are still some houses standing that have the red sandstone that was supposed to have been gotten from an area up by Jersey Avenue. Go look for the streets that are named for presidents. And there is one who has a president's name on it, but he wasn't president when they developed the street, and that's Clinton. And this is where the apartments are, Maybrook Drive, and down in that area, off of Beach Street. I think of one of the stories I like to think about, my father told me, and I look at Maywood Avenue, and when he was a kid, there were gypsies, and they used to come up as tinsmiths on a horse and wagon, and you could hear the clatter and everything. And I think the only clatter you hear now are these guys zooming all over the place and hope the brakes work. So there's a lot of stuff you can walk around and look at, and I'd be interested in what, pardon me, what your thoughts would be about that kind of stuff. What you discovered that you didn't know.
Also, if you happen to have anything like, from Maywood, historical, non-historical, something you thought that might be of interest to everybody.
But we moved here, so we don't.
Take it, if you can, take a picture and send it to us at the library. You can send it to my email, alan.bernstein@maywood.bccls.org. You don't have to remember that. Just go to the Maywood Public Library website and look under the work here and you'll find my name. But we'd love to include it in our programs. As I said, we have two more, September and October, and we're always looking for things to include in the program, that other people have.
After the October program is done, we're taking off November and December. And my hope is that I'll be back in January because I have an idea for a big program then, and I have an idea for February. So we have to discuss it. I haven't told him yet.
But surprise, surprise. Yes, here we go. But I would love to, just keep doing that. Yes.
Hey, Betty, a quick question if I can.
Sure.
Is another name for tinsmith whitesmith?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, because the blacksmiths, everybody knows they make nails and horseshoes and all that stuff. But I thought whitesmith was everything else.
Well, we'll have to look it up. I've never heard the term before like that. Good point.
I think I heard it when we were at Mystic Seaport.
Oh, well.
Well, Tony, you'll have to do your research and report back.
You better report back. We'll be waiting for you.
Aye, sir.
Let me just click on something for a second. Okay. You can continue. I'm just trying to bring something up here. So, other questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead. It's Samantha.
Well, thank you for the presentation, first of all. And I wanted to ask, when you were speaking of Schmidt's shop and you showed the picture, and over towards the right, there was like something like under the table. There were like pictures. I don't know if those
let me see if I can get that back up. Hold on.
Wait a minute. Yeah,
but I was interested because I saw like a girl and a horse. If those were like popular books or
Let's see. Let's bring the
pictures,
picture.
what were they?
Hold on while we get the picture.
Make sure I get
Okay,
the
thank you.
one. Okay, this one. We will go back to Schmidt's shop. If I can see it. We can do it. Yeah, I just have to get to where in the program it was. Should be right here. I got it. Hold on. There it is.
You were talking about
Okay, so
a girl and a horse?
which way?
Well, yes, like it's like right below where the family is sitting, there's like things facing out. I can't tell if it's popular books. I don't think it's records, but there's like all pictures
Oh,
of
right.
things.
Are you saying down here?
like, yes, there and up above. What are all those things?
Magazines at the bottom,
Okay,
all along the bottom, and then just above it is part of looks like a cigar case.
Those are cigars, yes,
okay.
Yeah.
which would be a little crunchy by now, but yeah, those are definitely looks like magazines because I can't tell if that's Life or what, but yes, those are all magazines.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
So,
Hi, Betty. It's Greg Padavano. I just
Hi,
want to
Greg,
say
how are you?
thank you so much for doing this again. Another great job. Thanks
Thank
for
you, Greg.
keeping Maywood's history alive.
Well, thanks to you, I've got this job. I was appointed town historian by Greg when he was mayor.
In perpetuity.
Yes. So far, hey, Greg, so far it's working well. Send off another year.
you're like a Supreme Court justice.
Forever.
That's it.
Forever and ever.
All right, just to let you know what's going on too, as I said, we'll reconvene in September, but in July and August, we've been running a nostalgia series. So I will pick that up again in July and August. I won't tell you what I'm working on, but it's nostalgia of places and things around Bergen County, Maywood, and other towns. So look on the Maywood website or the newsletter. Some of the other things we have during the month of June, we brought back virtual tech bar. So if you have a question on phones, smartphones or iPads or laptops or computers, call our circulation desk, call our main number, make an appointment. And next Tuesday, I'll be around. My background's in IT, so we will be taking your questions and working with you if you need help. We also I put out a chess challenge. If you play chess, I'm sure you can beat me, even though the slide says he doesn't think so. I'm sure you can beat me. And if you'd like to, call again the main number, make an appointment. The next time we will have it is Thursday afternoon, but we'll have it again next month. And if you beat me in half-hour time games, and it shouldn't take you that long to beat me, we will make sure you get a prize.
I just thought of something. I'm looking out the library window here and a plane went by. And when I was talking about planes before, I wanted to tell you that during World War II, on top of Maywood School, because it was the only school, it's Maywood Avenue School, there was a tower. And the tower was for air raid wardens to be up there in the dark of the night, and they worked in 2 different shifts, looking and searching the skies for enemy airplanes. And there were 2 women working one shift, and I don't know what they fought about, but they had a fight. And one threatened to throw the other one off from the tower. And at that point, the man who was the head of the air raid wardens happened to come in, and he broke up whatever the discussion was about. And fortunately, neither woman was hurt. Maybe egos were a little bruised, but they should have recovered. Now, I know this story to be true because both women told me the same story at different points. And somebody said, "Oh, who was it? Who was it? Who was it?" I said, "I promised never to tell." "Well, they can't be alive now." I said, "No, they're not, either one of them. But I promised I wouldn't tell, and I don't think it would be fair to their families to say anything, because the families are still around, if the family didn't know about it." But it's just one of those little mystique type conversations and such that I seem to get in and out of very easily. It's an interesting thing. Now, there was an army base in town also, which was down where Beach Street is now. And that's where Joe Louis went and met with the troops before they went to play baseball and all that sort of stuff. Again, walk around, take a look at the town, close your eyes and think of what it might have been, or, even yesterday there have been changes. So.
That's right.
But I thank you all for coming. It's always fun. If you want something else, let me know. The history committee has our office and our displays are not in great shape at this point because we haven't been able to get into the building in almost a year. So we're going to clean it up and let people know that it's open, and you might want to come up and rummage around and just look at what we have. We have quite a vast collection and donations of everything, just about everything we have in our collection has been donated by people that lived in Maywood or people whose relatives lived in Maywood and so forth. So we're very unique in this town. We keep things going, and it's built on volunteer spirit, and I think a love for the town that you live in. So I thank you all.
Just one or two more little housekeeping things. If you're interested, we have a program June 18th. We have a lawyer who will be speaking to elder law and long-term care and estate planning, so you might want to join in on that. You can sign up our adult craft this month. Our coloring plate sun catchers are fairly simple to make because I was able to make one. Registration is required. All the supplies except olive oil, which you must, you have to hopefully have at home. You'll need a little bit of that. Will be supplied. That's on the 21st. We have Mario Medici coming back. He's done a few programs for us. He'll be back on June 24th to do a program on the Jersey Shore. He has already done ones on Central Park and on Statue of Liberty and Ellis Island. So he'll be back. He does a great program. I've actually gone on a physical tour with him, so he does it. We have our book roundtable on June 25th. Anything that you read, not a special book, just come and we'll talk about it. And we have our movie night. Miss Juneteenth is the movie. It's available on Canopy, which if you're a library card holder here in Maywood, you get for free, and many other libraries have it. And we'll talk about the book, and I'm always looking for suggestions. And with that, you have any other questions? Betty, please.
Question, do you know who currently is the oldest Maywoodian?
No, Sue, I don't. And that's funny that you would ask, because I was thinking of that today. And the story on that question is, I know a couple of people who are in that age bracket, including our mutual friend, but would never admit it. So that's a big problem there. But after Colonel Lidecker passed away, the big problem for the 4th of July committee was to have how do you get a new grand marshal? And they were going through all sorts of hoops and rings and stuff. And finally, the committee decided they would open that up to the oldest native-born Maywoodian. And it was supposed to go to one lady who lived on Grove Avenue at that time. And she refused because she didn't want people to know how old she was. So they took the second oldest native-born Maywoodian, and it happened to be my Aunt Dorothy. So she was the one who followed after Colonel Lidecker, and each year they have chosen a different person, but not on the basis of age.
It'd be interesting.
Yeah. Maybe we can find an oldest living native-born man. And he'd be willing to share his age and something with us. I don't know. We have to see.
Well, we do know of one, so native born.
Yes, but she doesn't want any part of any of that stuff.
Oh, we don't have
I know
to
two of that. They're friends, or they were friends when they were up and about and getting around and everything. So it's a fun thing.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
All right.
again.
Well,
Okay.
we thank you
Yes,
for
indeed.
attending.
Thank you all. It's been a pleasure. And we'll see you next time, if not around town. And well, Dell and Sue, if you come to town, let's hear about it so we can see you.
Okay, we'll do.
Everyone stay safe, be well,
Yeah.
enjoy the summer.
Yes.
Thank
So
you.
much.
Thanks for a
Yeah.
great presentation and good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.